So, when you think of the word power, what is the very first image that just, flashes into your mind?
Oh, definitely something defensive, like, I don't know, holding your ground.
Right. For most of us, it's a clenched fist.
Yeah,
Or, a raised chin, a hardened gaze, maybe a fortress with a drawbridge pulled up tight.
yeah, totally. It's dominance, or at the very least, an absolute unbreakable refusal to be moved.
Exactly. Because we are socially conditioned to believe that power is all about protecting what's yours.
Right, you're supposed to scan the horizon for threats
Mhm.
and absolutely never show a soft underbelly. We just automatically equate yielding with losing.
But what if, and this is wild, what if the ultimate expression of power looks exactly like an open hand? Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone.
Yes, today we are diving into a really provocative text called The Sovereignty of the Well. And our mission is basically to completely flip the script on everything you think you know about power.
Because the author argues that true power doesn't actually announce itself with a roar or, a clenched fist. It doesn't
Mm.
need to.
It's a really jarring paradox when you first hear it. The text basically asks us to look at moments in our lives where we gave really deeply to someone else.
Right. Those moments where something essential to who we are just moved toward another person and we didn't resist it at all.
Yeah, and usually we look back at those moments of profound openness and we think, wow, I gave way too much, I lost my power.
But this text asks, well, what if what looked like a loss was actually the full expression of a force that was just too large to be contained by holding on to it?
I mean, that is such a massive shift in perspective.
It really is. I mean, I always pictured traditional power like walking around in a really heavy suit of medieval armor, right?
Oh, sure, like totally impenetrable.
Exactly. From the outside, armor looks impenetrable. It deflects blows, you look huge. But the reality of wearing armor is that it restricts your movement.
Yeah, it isolates you from your environment.
Yes. And ironically, it limits your actual physical capabilities. True power, according to the source, is less like an iron breastplate and, well, more like a suspension bridge.
Okay, I like that analogy. Break that down a bit.
So, a rigid concrete pillar snaps during an earthquake because it absolutely refuses to move. But a suspension bridge is actually engineered to sway.
Right. It yields to the wind and the weight.
Exactly. And that flexibility is precisely where its strength comes from. It offers itself to the moment without breaking.
That makes so much sense. Power that cannot yield isn't actually power at all. It's just rigidity.
Yeah, it's just armor pretending to be strength.
Right. And this matters fundamentally because true power, the kind that moves from the deep interior of a life that truly knows itself, can afford to give.
It can just yield without dissolving.
Yes, it can move toward another person without dissolving into them.
Yeah.
It doesn't dissolve because it has something underneath the gesture that isn't being given away.
Okay, wait, I have to stop you there. Because if true power is an open hand, and giving is just the natural expression of our nature, then giving shouldn't feel incredibly draining, right?
Right. It should.
But let's be real with anyone listening right now. So many of us have a history of feeling like we are literally losing ourselves when we give to other people.
Oh, absolutely. It's exhausting.
So if it's just our nature to yield like a suspension bridge, why does it exhaust us to the point of complete burnout?
Well, the author addresses this directly through what they call the honest complication. They outline two radically different types of giving.
Okay, the honest complication. What are the two types?
So there is giving that flows from your depth, which the text calls sovereignty in motion.
Hmm.
But then there's the giving that comes from a wound.
A wound, like past trauma.
Yeah, exactly. The part of you that learned, perhaps very early on, that shrinking, adapting, and disappearing into another person's needs was just the safest possible place to be.
Okay, let's unpack this because I'm going to push back slightly here to deepen this for us.
Sure, go for it.
Wait, if I'm giving to someone because I want to keep the peace in my home or, meet a partner's needs, society generally calls that empathy, doesn't it?
Right. Or being highly adaptable.
Yeah, people call that just being a good partner. So why is this text framing that specific dynamic as coming from a wound?
It really comes down to the internal origin point of the action. Empathy and adaptability are choices made from a place of fullness.
Meaning I'm choosing to yield because I actually have the capacity.
Exactly. You choose to yield because you can. But giving from a wound is not a choice. It's a survival strategy.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a big distinction.
It is. It's giving from this terrified belief that if you don't disappear into this other person's needs, you will lose the connection or you'll be unsafe.
So you're not actually choosing it, you're forced into it by your own fear.
Right. The author calls this sovereignty in exile. And the compassionate core of this text emphasizes that this is not a judgment or some kind of moral failure.
It's not about feeling bad about yourself.
No, not at all. It's a diagnostic tool to help you understand exactly where you're acting from. You have to ask, am I giving from my center or am I giving from exile?
Man, it's almost like an autoimmune response, you know? Like the psyche attacks its own boundaries just to neutralize a perceived external threat.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
You become hypervigilant. You try to fix the other person's discomfort because their discomfort feels like a direct threat to your own survival.
Precisely. The mechanism of giving from exile is rooted entirely in hypervigilance, not generosity.
Right, you're not just being generous.
No, because when you operate from exile, your brain is constantly scanning the environment. You're adjusting your personality, your desires, your boundaries, all to match what you calculate they require.
So you aren't actually giving them your authentic self at all.
Exactly. You are giving them a highly curated version of yourself designed specifically to manage their reactions.
And that is why it feels so draining. You're essentially running this massive, exhausting background program to monitor their emotional state at all times.
It drains your battery entirely.
So, okay, this brings up a really tough dynamic. If we look back and realize, wow, I've been operating from exile for years, surrendering my power, where did it actually go?
Right. Who did you give it to?
Yeah, who has it now? Because we've all been in relationships where we felt like we surrendered everything.
Well, the author suggests that asking whether you gave your power away entirely misses the mark
Wait, really? How so?
because it hides a deeper question that most people never think to ask. The question isn't if you gave it away, it's to whom did you think you were giving it?
Okay, I hear that, but you're probably listening to this thinking, I know exactly who I gave it to. My manipulative ex or, my domineering boss.
Right. We always have a face in mind.
Exactly. I find this dynamic so deeply relatable, though. Imagine you have a massive life savings, like millions of dollars.
Okay, be a nice problem to have.
Right. But over the years, you've completely convinced yourself that you are terrible at math, that you are fundamentally irresponsible and cannot be trusted to manage your own money.
So you panic about having it.
Yes. And then you find someone who looks really confident, someone who speaks loudly, who takes up space, who just seems larger and steadier than you feel.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, and you literally deposit your entire life savings into their bank account. You didn't lose the value of the money. The wealth still exists.
You just outsource the management of it.
Exactly. You outsourced it because you saw the other person as more capable of holding it than you were.
What's fascinating here is that the text does not view this outsourcing as a tragedy or some catastrophic failure of character.
Really? Because giving your life savings to a jerk feels like a massive failure.
I know, but instead, the author describes this phase as the long, slow curriculum of embodied existence.
The curriculum of embodied existence.
Wow. So you're saying that projecting our power onto unqualified people is just, it's like the brain's prerequisite course.
Yes, literally how human consciousness learns to eventually hold power internally. We don't start out fully integrated.
We have to learn it the hard way. Right. Sometimes the only way we can begin to learn about the magnitude of our own power is by first projecting it onto someone else.
We locate it outside of our physical bodies because, we just haven't built the neurological architecture to feel it inside yet?
Exactly. We needed to see it modeled in someone we deemed larger, like a parent, a mentor, or a romantic partner, before we could ever hope to recognize it as our own.
We essentially use them as a mirror until our own eyes adjust to the glare. We make them the manager of the bank account because the responsibility of holding that much capital is just too terrifying.
It's overwhelming.
But, realizing you spent a decade letting someone else mismanage your account, that hurts. Looking back at those smaller versions of ourselves naturally brings up intense sadness.
And it absolutely should.
Yeah.
But the source text frames this sadness by completely redefining the grief itself. It divides it into muddy grief and clean grief.
Muddy grief and clean grief. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, usually when we look back at relationships where we outsourced our power, our grief is muddy. It's thick with resentment, victimhood, and this desperate desire for the other person to apologize.
Right, we want them to validate our pain and admit they mismanaged our account.
Yes. Clean grief, however, is not about feeling wronged by the other person, regardless of how poorly they behaved.
Then what is it mourning? If it's not the betrayal, what is the sadness about?
Clean grief is the profound sorrow of seeing the massive distance between what you were actually capable of and the incredible smallness you accepted.
Oh man, that hits hard.
It does. It's mourning the gap between the fullness you carried inside and the version of yourself that walked through life as though you needed a permission slip just to take up space.
The text notes this grief isn't self-punishment, though, right? It's just the organism completing its own arc and growing past its old limits.
Exactly. It's a sign of growth.
Think of it like outgrowing a piece of software. You don't get mad at your old operating system for crashing when you try to run a new, highly complex program on it.
Right? It was just doing what it was programmed to do.
Exactly. The old system did exactly what it was supposed to, based on the limited data it had at the time. The pain of the crash isn't malice, it's just the sheer friction of outgrowing your old programming.
Yeah, you are touching the beginning of something new from the position of having grown past the old.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Right in the middle of processing this clean grief, the author drops the ultimate plot twist of the entire text.
The realization that changes the entire paradigm.
Yes, the realization that power does not actually transfer.
You literally cannot give it away.
Yeah.
Not in any final sense, because it was never separate from you to begin with.
Wait, let's pause here. If my power never left my body, what actually happened in those relationships where I felt completely drained and hollowed out?
Right. Feels like something left you.
Exactly. So what moved between me and that other person?
What moved wasn't your power. It was your attention.
My attention.
Yes, your attention, your recognition, your sense of yourself as the source. Imagine the spotlight of your awareness. Usually, it illuminates your own internal landscape.
Okay, I'm picturing a spotlight.
But in those moments of outsourcing, you took that spotlight and aimed it entirely at them. Your inner world went dark, not because the power left the building, but because you simply stopped looking at it.
Wow. So what I gave away in those formative moments wasn't my power at all. It was just the memory of where my power lives.
Exactly, you forgot where the source was.
There is a specific quote from the text here that I think is just vital to make this memorable. The author writes, "You are not what happened when you opened. You are what opened."
That is such a powerful line.
It fundamentally shifts how I view my own past. Your openness toward that person, your longing for genuine connection, the depth of your empathy, none of that was a mistake.
Even if the relationship ended horribly.
Right. Even if they were completely incapable of receiving you. The quality of what was real in you remains completely untarnished by their inability to hold it.
That is the ultimate decoupling right there. It separates your inherent worth from their reaction.
The only error, according to this text, was the cognitive distortion that the other person held the key to a power that was always internal.
And the truly liberating mechanic of this reality is how you retrieve it.
Oh, yes, let's talk about the retrieval, because if the power never actually left us, how do we get back in touch with it?
Well, you don't have to go on some big crusade to reclaim it from the people who hurt you.
Which is such a relief, honestly.
Right. You don't need closure from them. You don't even need to forgive them. The belief that they hold your power is over the exact moment you decide to stop believing that story.
You just take the spotlight of your attention and physically pivot back to your own center. You just stop going back to the dead-end story of that relationship to determine your worth.
Exactly.
But practically speaking, how do you do that? I mean, if you've spent 30 years wiring your brain to obsess over external validation, how do you just pivot your attention and start living from this new place?
The text points us toward the practice of moving from what it calls the inexhaustible well.
The inexhaustible well. Okay, how does that work?
The author describes a specific texture to a life lived from this knowing. It's not a life where you suddenly stop giving or become guarded and cold.
So you don't build a fortress?
No, not at all. There's still immense generosity. But the underlying mechanics have shifted completely. You are no longer giving from a desperate need to secure your safety.
Right, you're not giving from exile anymore.
Exactly. You are giving from a place of absolute abundance. But this requires a conscious, active practice of checking your internal orientation.
So you have to constantly check in with yourself.
Yes, you have to ask yourself again and again in real time, am I drawing from the well or am I reacting from the fear that the well have already run dry?
So what does this all mean for us? I want to translate the author's beautiful cosmic imagery into practical reality here.
Let's do it.
The text says you were born from the exact same source that keeps rivers running and stars in their courses, which, for a highly analytical listener, might sound a bit like, poetic fluff.
Sure, it sounds very mystical.
Let's ground it in the sheer biological miracle of the human body. The author uses this amazing analogy of the eye.
Oh, I love the eye analogy.
Right. The intelligence that built an eye and taught it to process light did not give you a limited, finite amount of sight to spend over your lifetime.
Yeah, you don't wake up and calculate, oh, I better not look at too many vibrant colors today, or I might use up my vision quota by 4 p.m.
Exactly. Just looking at things doesn't deplete your ability to see. Seeing is simply the nature of the eye.
It's what it is designed to do.
And in that exact same way, expressing your authentic self-giving, your warmth, your intelligence, your empathy does not deplete your nature.
It really connects to the bigger picture. That force of life didn't place itself inside you as a prepaid debit card with a limited balance that gets spent down every time you interact with someone.
Right, until you're just running on empty.
Exactly. It placed itself inside you as a nature. And a nature is not subject to the laws of depletion. Power is not a finite thing.
This changes the entire paradigm of how we interact with the world, doesn't it?
It really does. Because we live in a society deeply obsessed with scarcity.
Oh, completely. We are taught that we only have so much energy, so much love, so much power, and we absolutely must fiercely guard it behind boundaries and walls.
But this text is reminding us that we are tapping into something infinite. The well cannot run dry. It is simply not that kind of thing.
Your power was just waiting with extraordinary equanimity for you to finally notice it.
Waiting for you to point the spotlight back.
It never needed your permission to exist, it just needed your attention to be felt. So let's bring this deep dive full circle.
Sounds good.
We started by picturing power as a clenched fist, as a fortress, as this rigid armor we use to protect ourselves from being drained by the world.
And we realize that armor just weighs us down.
Exactly. What we've discovered is that true power isn't about guarding yourself with a clenched fist. It's a sovereignty that can afford to yield.
It is the open hand, giving from a place of abundance rather than need to be chosen.
It's the profound realization that you don't need the armor, because what is truly essential inside of you cannot be damaged, and it cannot be given away.
So for you, listening to this right now, the ultimate question this text leaves you with isn't historical.
Right. It's not about the past anymore.
No. The issue is no longer whether you gave your power away to an ex or a boss. The only question that matters now is whether you are finally ready to stop believing that you did.
Wow.
The moment you stop believing that story, in your gut, in your bones, in your very cells, is the exact moment you return to yourself.
That is just incredible. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you step back out into your day.
Something to take with them.
Yeah. We talk constantly in our culture about protecting your energy, right? We build walls, we curate our boundaries, we clench our fists to keep the world from taking what is ours.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. But if your power truly is an inexhaustible well, if it is a literal force of nature that cannot run dry, what would happen if, starting today, you entirely dropped the exhausting concept of protecting your energy?
Just let it go completely.
Yes. What if true safety isn't found in guarding the well with a clenched fist, but in simply trusting its infinite depth?